It's always enjoyable to have an opportunity to tell you what's going on in our data center. I'm sure you guys get us on the phone and customer delivery answers a lot of your questions, but here's an opportunity for you to come down and actually hear from us, the ones that are actually calling the shots or making some of the tough decisions. What I'm going to share with you today is the infrastructure changes that we're making, specifically changes to the dark fiber and a data center diverse path. As you know, we both have data centers at Vacaville and in Rancho Cordova, which provide computing services to the state of California. The transport between these services, the data centers, has evolved and is currently using the fiber ring service. Some of the data center needs are depicted on the slide. Having two data centers provides the basis for disaster recovery and business continuity. Having data replication and storage at both host and remote data center locations. Network resiliency to survive network instability and outages. The ability to host virtual machines and the mobility to have those machines available at both data locations. That seems to be a real important topic now with us moving towards virtualization and being able to move services from data center to data center. We have active and active services where application resources can be shared between the data centers, resulting in no dark sites. That's pretty important for those of you that want DR or have business continuity needs. And ultimately, it's high bandwidth for transport of data between services and applications supporting customers doing business with the state. This is where we started, and it'll give you an idea of our legacy connectivity. SONET was used over optical carrier lines for connectivity. These carrier lines were two OC192s, 10 gigabit each. They were lease lines. The data center managed with these two OC192s with all the shared applications in the data center. So at one time, everything that we sent data center to data center used these two 10 gig lines for a total of 20 gigabits. The cost per month was $70,000 per month to the data center. As services at the data center grew and results of AB 2408, the advent of cloud services, virtualization, storage, bandwidth needs expanded, requiring us to revisit the data center connectivity needs. We embarked on a new dark fiber deployment with phase one currently in place. In phase one, our dark fiber deployment enhanced significantly. The connections between the data centers, we procured new hardware and fiber, which enabled us to provide redundant entrances to GoCamp. And a single entrance today is at Vacaville. In building out the metropolitan area network, fiber in downtown Sacramento, we created a new fiber ring service, which also connects the two data centers. Where we once had two OC192s equaling 20 gigabits, today there are 32 wavelengths, with each having the capacity of 10 gigabits. That equals 320 gigabits between the data centers that can be provisioned. Of these 32 wavelengths, 24 are currently provisioned to meet the needs of the data center, and they provide 240 gigabits worth of bandwidth. Not saying we're passing 240 gigs between the data centers, but they are provisioned for different replication, mainframe, storage, campus to campus, cloud services, MCS, and others. It's well more than the first 20 gigabits that we used. We have since deleted one OC192 and 3 of the 1 gig connections that were existed between the sites. As depicted in this slide, there are paths between GoCamp and Vacaville. Just want to make sure you can see the colors okay. The yellow path is what I'll call path A. That's a direct path between the two data centers. All the fiber is not, there's no telco in the middle of any of the fiber, so those direct paths mean that we control the dark fiber all the way through to the data centers, enhancing security. So the blue path would be the alternate path or another path, and it goes through the downtown metro area network. And that's where I was talking about earlier, where we actually developed the fiber ring service downtown. And by developing that, we were also able to tie into the data centers to add a secondary path to Vacaville. Should there be a failure of path A, which is the yellow, or path B, which is the blue, Then what we have is we have red, and that's called the emergency path. That emergency path, if you recall in the beginning, I said that we had two OC192s. Well, we still maintain one of those OC92s. It's 10 gigabit, and that's used for critical services in case we lose all of our fiber. Most of the critical services that are provisioned for that link are already there. So don't ask to add any other services to that. We've already provisioned those circuits for the times when we will totally be dark on our fiber, and we'll still have to do business continuity. So that's what's going to keep the data center alive, the heartbeat, if you will. All of the paths today provide transport. So there's not a path that's up and another path that's down. All paths are used. They provide things like load balancing and diverse and primary alternate paths. Additional enhancements are being made to the data center, and currently there's no clear path offered by any optical carriers to provide a secondary entrance to Vacaville. And the reason for that is most carriers, optical carriers, they run their fiber from major city to major city. And there's no major city between Sacramento and Vacaville, unless you want to count Davis. Anybody live in Davis? You might think that's a major city, Nancy. But there's no major cities there. So all the fiber, it actually just went straight through Vacaville. They didn't want to cut it there. And we're in negotiations. Actually, we talked to one of our vendors who's willing to look at the feasibility of that they can make some additional funds in Vacaville by selling their services not only to OTEC but to others. And so they decided that they were going to go ahead and let us have a secondary entrance into the facility, which is going to provide redundancy to that location, diverse path we will have, and we're anticipating that the first quarter of 2016. We've also procured hardware to enable us to provide encryption at layer 1. We have not yet provisioned any customers on this hardware, but we anticipate the service offering in the near future. And if it's mandated that we go to encrypt all of the fiber, then we have that capacity and we have the equipment in place to do so. Additionally, we're procuring new hardware which will permit up to 100 gigabits per wavelength and enable us to configure 40 diverse wavelengths, allowing us to be well ahead of any expected bandwidth needs that the data center may have in the future. And if you do the math, 40 times 10, that's 400 gigabits would be the minimum, and 100 times 40, that's 4 terabytes. So anywhere from 400 gigabytes to 4 terabytes. That's a lot of traffic. So we can handle your needs between the data centers. Ultimately, we have built a robust data center transport infrastructure. We want you to know that cost savings and avoidance was considered and used while making our decisions in building out the data center connectivity. Some of the cost savings are the optical path. When completed in phase 2, we'll have replaced 2 OC192s and 3 1 gigabit circuits for a cost savings of $91,000 per month. We currently have provisioned 240 gigabits between the sites. Technology for that same bandwidth, if we were going to buy that from the optical carriers, would be quite costly. We estimate that cost savings to us, or that cost that we are avoiding, is $720,000 worth of monthly charges from the carrier. Additional cost savings were experienced by us by deploying our own hardware for layer 1 encryption. Cost of telco services for encryption proved to be exorbitant when we looked, and we felt that it was a better cost to the state by procuring our own hardware to do that. All in all, the expenditures made on the data center fiber project have been recouped. There was 11th month return on investment, and we have already experienced that return on investment. I'd like to take a few moments to talk to you about the fiber ring services currently being offered at OTEC. The fiber ring service is on the OTEC metropolitan area network, and it's in downtown Sacramento. Previously, you needed an exemption from CalNet to use the service as it was in direct competition with our CalNet contracts. We have now incorporated the fiber ring service into CGen, and it can be requested as a normal CGen transport service. OTEC is currently adding 15 additional locations in the downtown area to facilitate customers wanting higher bandwidth speeds at a reasonable cost. We have support of CalNet for any maintenance coverage with SLAs in place to provide high availability. Some facts to note: the fiber paths, optical, and network equipment, as well as the power, are all redundant. The fiber ring service has complete access to the data center and the same access as all other CGen customers at higher bandwidth speeds. We have the availability of 5 nines. What that means is that the service is always up. Very rarely will you ever find it down. In that scenario that I spoke of before, where we're using 10 gig to back up the whole data center, is very rarely going to come into play. So 5 nines is what we have. With our SLAs, we're able to repair any breaks in the fiber very quickly, unless there was a total emergency in the Northern California area, which we're not expecting. We support multiple protocols such as DWDM, Ethernet, MPLS, and Fiber Channel. All services expected of a telecom provider are provided by OTEC. We have staff expertise in-house with access to multiple vendors for additional knowledge, sharing, training, and support. All in all, our fiber ring is rock solid. If you like to use the CGen fiber ring services, here are the methods which fiber ring service can be requested. Generally, a customer service system request is needed to begin the process. Your customer representatives can assist you with any questions, and if needed, they have access to network staff who can help you in taking advantage of those services. In closing, OTEC and STND look forward to continuing to satisfy the data center connectivity needs, and we accept the challenge of providing you the best services, not only to you, but to all the constituents of the state of California. I'd like to thank you for your time this morning.